Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Talks One podcast today. We have a very interesting topic, again, based on real life experiences that we had as a family. Today, we are going to contrast childbirth and childbearing, going through various processes, both in India and the US, and going to share our experiences, how it was, what it took for us, what are its ups and downs. So let's start out with our first child. So I particularly married later in my life, and as a result, our baby, the first baby that we had, was in our late 30s. So ideally, late 30s is not considered as an ideal age to have a child. So for us particularly, we went for like IUI treatment. That time it was in India actually, so we went for an IUI treatment. We didn't see much kind of results through it, and then out of nowhere, through just natural kind of process, we did conceive a baby, which resulted in a miscarriage in almost, I would say, 6 to 7 weeks. So we did not get the heartbeat, and it was very devastating for us because it didn't make sense to us. It was first time for us. We were by ourselves, and all I can say is that through the IUI treatment, while we were doing the process, whatever they were saying, but it still didn't result into any outcome that we desired. And we had been doing that for probably like 3 to 4 months. I don't know, like if we went further away with that. And then we left because we relocated to a new location. I think we moved from Delhi to Bangalore, and in Bangalore, we stopped doing any of those things, and we had a kind of a miscarriage at that point of time in Bangalore. A lot of people attributed it to like advanced age of us, like late 30s, and that's why chances of miscarriages, etc., kind of worsens. So essentially, this process basically is quite involved because you go through a lot of changes, hormonal changes, and you trust the doctors, but it almost seems like even the doctors don't know a lot of things. They may treat some of these symptoms, but they cannot guarantee that you will get a favorable outcome, or it will go according to you. So thankfully, after some time, we basically conceived again this time, and we were very happy that we conceived again. And in this time, while we were conceiving it, there were a lot of complications that developed. So one of them was that my wife actually started bleeding initially when she conceived, and we were very perturbed as to why this is coming. So I recollect the doctor. We were in Bangalore at that time. Basically recommended that she can sew the uterus so that you can sustain the baby, and the bleeding would probably stop. But thankfully, we went to the doctor in India. As soon as the bleeding started, we immediately called the hospital. It was like afternoon time. I was at work, and I came back home, and we were quickly able to go to the hospital right away and meet our doctor. And she checked, and she said it should be fine. And I think she gave us some medicine. I'm not sure what exactly she prescribed at that point of time, and she did recommend that in case if this persists, then she will basically sew up the uterus so as to sustain the baby, and nothing would happen. So thankfully, after that brief medication, the bleeding and all basically stopped. And then we went ahead with the further process as the weeks progressed by. So I recollect when they do this double marker test, or chord marker test, where they are checking for the features of developing fetus. At that point of time, they did not find the nasal bone for our baby, and that process is known as late ossification, and that's like a marker for some kind of a syndrome that they check. I think it's Down syndrome, Johnson syndrome, and there is one more. I forgot what that syndrome is, but they look for a couple of markers, and that is consistent with one of the markers. So we were very perturbed when we heard that. and we asked the radiologist, did you do the ultrasound correctly? Did you miss the nose? And she was very consistent that you'll have to come back again. And we did go again after a week, and this time they were able to find the nasal bone and eyes and ears, and basically they look for every kind of features, and all of them were present there. And in addition to that, like when all of these things were going on, since it was our first time, and as it is, as I said, it was late 30s age, all these things were very very like perturbing for us, and we just went through it. I particularly read a lot of documentation around statistics, like what can it lead into, etc. And because of our advanced age, everything used to show us like high risk, high risk, high risk. um, but then we continued to go ahead with that. We did After that we did a lot of tests, like the needle test, I think cord marker test, etc. All of them were kind of relatively okay, but of course they also used to come out with high risk due to the age factor involved, but nothing out of the ordinary. And last, when we actually were about to conceive the baby, we in India at that time we had moved back to like Delhi region. So we were in like Indrapuram region of Ghaziabad NCR region, and there actually when we reached there, we were advised to go for a C-section because the NTSC report was not good. Baby was under stress, and there were two loops around the neck of the baby. So immediately we went under the knife, got the operation done. Thankfully, at that point of time, we did have a like a corporate insurance plan that did cover the entire pregnancy. I think its range was rupees 50,000 or probably 60,000 rupees is what that it covers. So it was, I think, enough or almost enough to cover the expenses for the hospital. And then when we did the operation, it was just 15 minutes operation and kid was already out. And he was very healthy, successful. Wife was also well. And this was a relatively like an average, typical average private hospital in Indrapuram in Delhi NCR region. So nothing very fancy or five-star hospital, and neither very like bad hospital. So something an average, like I would say. Throughout the process, I would say the doctor that we got there in Delhi was really good, very particular, etc. And she didn't want to take any risks, and hence we went with the recommendation of CSAC. Apparently, we learned that in India, pretty much everyone goes through the C-section one way or the other. All the hospitals and the doctors try to push C-section, being the much more easier choice, and even hospitals tend to make more money because I think normal delivery is only probably like 20,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees, whereas a C-section is above 50, 55, 60,000, something like that. I think normal is even lower, maybe 10 to 12,000 rupees itself. It's not even considered as an operation actually. And so our experience through this process was that we went for an artificial IUI treatment. We were also considering IVF, but we basically never went ahead with because we were not very much like super gung ho about the IUI as well. But having said that, I would not suggest that you should not try like a artificial insemination, IUI or IVF. So IUI treatment is where they'll take the eggs and the semen separately, they'll wash it, cleanse it, and then they'll fuse it together and then place it back in the woman's womb. That's how the IUI treatment is. IVF, on the other hand, is basically much more kind of involved treatment where they would do something similar as well, but it seems that IUI process is little bit cheaper, whereas IVF is much more expensive and much more constrained, where you have to inject the women quite a bit. So in IVF, you also extract out the eggs as well as the semen, and artificially create an embryo and then place it back in the womb of the women. Whereas in the IUI, you only basically extract the most healthy semen of the male, cleanse it, etc., and then basically artificially inject the women. You don't basically take out the eggs of the women. You directly inject directly that into the uterus of the women. That's, I think, the core difference between the IUI and IVF. So IUI is much more simpler, much more cheaper, easier, versus IVF, which is much more complicated because both the eggs as well as the semen is brought out and then fertilized together, and then basically once it is fertilized, it is placed back into the womb. Um, in our experience, I would say in India, right, so we encountered like a doctor in a hospital in Bangalore, we encountered a doctor in hospital in the Delhi region. In Bangalore, our experience was the doctor was very goody, she was very nice to talk to, but then she was not very particular. She would forget what she used to tell last week versus now. And it almost seemed like she was not on top of everything, but she was very sweet talker, she was very nice to talk to. So throughout the period, we had encountered certain basic issues where she prescribed us, like I think, like iron medicine 2 times, and it resulted in like constipation and a lot of bloating for my wife. So we had to specify this thing to her, and then she removed it. So there was these kind of misses that happened in Bangalore when we were dealing with the doctor. But when we went back to like Delhi and dealt with another doctor, this time around, she was very particular. She was not sweet talker, she was a very straight talker, but we had a good, like I think, experience with her because we felt much more comfortable that she will be very methodological, and whatever she'll do, she'll go step by step, and that's what happened. Secondly, I would say the hospital that we got, though they pushed us to go for like C-section, and which is what we said, okay, fine, let's do that, because the NTSC report, which basically says whether the baby is in stress or not, and it was actually in stress. So, and then there were two loops, so that's something we went ahead with the recommendation. Uh, but during that process, there were some fibroids also that we found out in the uterus at the time. So doctors were kind enough when they were operating. She also removed the fibroids as well. And interestingly, the insurance actually paid for that as well. So they paid for the, whatever 50-55K for the pregnancy operation, CSEC, and then they paid additionally for the fibroid operation as well. And I think total cost was somewhere, I guess, 65 to maybe 70K. All pretty much majority of which was paid through the insurance. So technically, we paid like very little out of pocket, maybe 5-10K or maybe something like that. So overall, the experience was good because the outcome was also good. But this is the real experience that we got in India. And as you can say, like the care in India is quite evident because you have a lot of these nurses, and the help is already available. You have the family members. So my wife stayed in the hospital for probably 2 days, where the nurses were coming to clean her up and things like that. And after 2 days, we were basically moved out of the hospital back to our home. It was all cashless delivery, so we did not pay a single money. On the day of our like checking out of the hospital, basically they got an approval from the insurance, and everything got paid, and then they let us basically go through discharging. One mistake that happened at the time by me is that hospital did ask me like my personal details about mother, father, the location, address, and whatnot. I did provide them those details. I didn't realize at that time they were asking this to build basically birth certificate of our child. And apparently we already had a name and everything for our child predetermined. um, if it would be a boy, this will be the name, and if it would be girl, this would be the name. In our case, it was a unisex name, so it would have gone for either, because in India you don't know the sex of the child until it is born. And in our case, since somehow, like in India, a lot of people like talk to a pandit and then basically get a name. So technically, in the hospital, they don't know the name. In our case, we already knew. So when we got a certificate from the hospital, that had just the name of the dad and basically name of the mom, and it said the child of so and so, not the actual name. That is what was written on the birth certificate. So then I had to go to the municipality, pay like probably 100 rupees to get it fixed actually. So that could have been avoided had the hospital told me earlier that this is what they're asking, or do you know the name of the child. If they would have just asked this, it would have been very simple. So that's a kind of a miss that happened. So that's the like episode of like our first child and the experience in India. And soon after, I think in 6 months, when he was up and running and he was all good, we basically flew back to the US. to New York actually at that point of time. Then I would actually share our experience in the US as well. So our second child, again, we were now very confident about the natural conception, and did not want to spend any money or time or energy on uh, you know any kind of artificial like IUI or IVF. So again, by luck, we got pregnant again, and this time again during like 7 or 8 weeks pregnancy, we went to one hospital. They told that they did hear the heartbeat, but the very next week that we went, like on eighth week, they said they did not hear the heartbeat. So again, we were like very puzzled, like how come they heard the last time, not this time. It was a little bit difficult to like make sense of it, and it can like we were very confused. And then basically, doctor suggested that you no longer have the fetus, and it's a kind of a miscarriage. And now this happened for the like this is the third time we conceived, right? The first time we conceived, it was a miscarriage. Second time was a healthy delivered baby. Third time again a miscarriage. This time it was in the US though. So doctor gave us like a lot of medications. Like first time when it happened, they had to do DNC, like a small operation where they removed the unbuilt like dead fetus and things like that. That happened with my wife, and it was again fully covered by insurance in India, and I think it was like 15-20,000 rupees. I don't like know exactly the amount, but I think that is what the amount was. In the US, they just prescribe certain medication to basically get it out of your system. So for a week, I think my wife had to take that medication, and it basically automatically got flushed out. So she was receiving a lot of pain and cramps and whatnot. So the whole week was like very difficult for her to bear with it. So this is what happened in the third time when we conceived, and this resulted into a miscarriage again. And this time around, since we were already like in 30s, late 30s, in the first conception itself, we were already losing time. And then we again thought of like should we be basically taking any kind of medical help, etc., because we're losing time and we want our next baby. And and in the US system things are very difficult. You don't understand everything. The outpatient treatment here is kind of all over the place in the US, and doctors don't answer very well. So like you're just on your own. And of course IVF and other kind of treatments are super expensive here in the US. In India, we had heard that it would cost you between 2 to 3 lakh rupees. Like IVF and IUI is probably maybe lower, maybe under 50-60K. But in the US, I think it will go up to like 50,000, maybe $100,000, etc. We didn't even try, like given that the prohibitively high cost of doing those things. But we started considering after the third time when we conceived, and it resulted in a miscarriage. So we were just giving ourselves time that we should probably just give us ourselves like another year or 2 years and then see what happens. So, as the luck would have it, right, we again, after almost 1.5 years, or maybe close to 2 years, we conceived again. This time in the U.S. And this time around, when we conceived, it was the heartbeat and all, everything came fine. Luckily for us, the hospital that we got seemed to work for us, and things started kind of moving forward. And the doctor also that we got, were very kind, very thoughtful. Though they explained us what the risks are, given that now we were in much more like advanced age, essentially. But things kind of started progressing forward. And the good part we liked about this time was that throughout our period of pregnancy, doctor was very prompt. We would immediately get like a nurse helpline through the doctor's office. So if any kind of issue was happening, be it like getting hemorrhoids, which is pretty common, or some slight spotting or bleeding that happened throughout the process, all those questions were being answered by the nurses. And pretty much we were meeting the doctor pretty much every month initially. Then in I think towards the last trimester, it was every other week, which is every fortnight. And towards the last month, it was like basically every week we were meeting the doctors. Relatively, all the scans and ultrasound, etc., in the second pregnancy went pretty smoothly. We never had any kind of like double marker risk or things like that. Briefly, we felt that there was some deficiency of iron in my wife, and then a slightly elevated like diabetes that we found. But doctor said that just ignore it; it doesn't matter. It's kind of normal, so we didn't pay much attention to it. It was mostly just take the like the whole foods, and we avoided any kind of like sweet foods and things like that, so as to not gain too much weight, so that was helpful. And the best part that we liked in the US was that our impression of the US medical system was extremely horrible based upon our past experience in the US. But surprisingly, the day we were about to, so we were like full term 37 weeks plus. And one day, there were a lot of cramps, and it was already like 12 a.m., like it was night time. And we had to rush to the hospital, and we were told that if you come at a night time, etc., just head to the emergency room. And that's what we did. uh, when we went to the emergency room, basically the people there were like completely clueless. They just did not know what needs to be done. They just were saying that you need to go to the maternity center. We said it's already night, like we cannot go there. um, so we lost close to half an hour, and my wife was like like we thought like we are going to have the baby today itself. And she was in a lot of pain. But we felt that the emergency room was not very helpful. They We had to like we spent like half an hour there, walking from one place to another, and nobody was willing to take her in and do something about it. They advised us to go to the maternity center. So I again drove back to the maternity center, and then there was nobody. We were all shut down. And then we called 911 actually, and the police asked us like, "Where are you?" We said, "We are right in front of the hospital." They said, "Yeah, be there. We'll let somebody know because we will also would have taken you to the same place. So you're already there where you have to be." So we waited again for like 5-10 minutes, and since nobody showed up, we again went back to the emergency room. And this time I kind of lost my cool, and I said, "Hey, you need to take it, like stop everything, just focus on her. She's in a urgent condition." And then they assigned her like another nurse or a doctor or some kind of a helper within the hospital. From the emergency room, she took us to the actual maternity ward. And it took us like almost 10-15 minutes to walk through it, where it was just so difficult, in the sense that there were just so many pathways and all. I mean, if we were given choice to do ourselves, we couldn't have done it because there's just so many interconnected places and all. And we were already stressed out at that point of time, and of course my wife couldn't have walked. So we had her on stretcher, like a wheelchair, and we pushed it through the process. So that was extremely bad. But then we finally reached the maternity hospital. There the triage nurse basically started attending us, asking us all the questions. We were still very furious with like how we were treated and like how much time we had wasted. But that was like a false positive, so they just put her on a, like a iv and the drip. That night, kept her in the investigation for next 1 to 2 hours, almost like 2 hours. And they released us back home saying that, hey, this is not like pregnancy. You're still fine. And since the pain and all has gone back, so you are basically free to go back home. So after 2 hours, we basically drove back home, and then they suggested that next time if you have to come, you can come directly to the maternity ward, and there is a like a bell that you need to ring. And once you ring the bell, then somebody will basically let you in. But there will be no people physically out there to like let you in if you come in the like the night time or outside of the regular business hours. So this is what it was. And then they also advise us that you should like call us before when you're coming in, so that they can prepare. So then just in like next 2 days again we were back to this thing. This time I think the water broke. Liquid was coming seeping in. So I called up the hospital intimating them that, hey, we are coming, the water already broke. And we directly reached to the family maternity in the hospital. uh, Pressed the like the bell. This time they basically had our like opened up the door, and we were able to get in directly. And this was actually a successful basically pregnancy. So once we were in the hospital, and the nurse took us directly to the different room. uh, so from here on, the experience basically completely changed. The nurses were very very kind. They took us to a room. I was also with my wife throughout the process. Doctor was also visiting regularly. Throughout the night they were able to take a lot of our vital statistics, etc. And they put her on the IV. And it was like a painful process because she was admitted almost around 12:30, I would say. Maybe 12:30, maybe 1:30. I think 1:30 is when she was admitted, and we had the baby the next day at around 12:24. So almost 24 hours she was there in the intense labor, and lot of fluids, etc., were being given to her. A lot of things were being injected on her. But I think the one thing we liked throughout this process was that the nurses were very helpful. They were like taking care of her prior to the operation. Doctor was visiting, etc. Uh, they suggested that we should go for the natural delivery, even though the previous one was a C-section. So this was very surprising because in India they would have never done that. For them, by default, they go for a C-section. So that was one great thing. But the other thing to note here is that at least for 4 hours, my wife was directly in pain. The baby was basically, she was dilated almost to the 10. Baby was stuck in the birth canal, and they were waiting that baby will come out automatically, but it was not. So finally, after like struggling for 4.5 hours, doctor came in. They had to vacuum suck the baby out, actually. And it was very draining process for both my wife as well as for all the people. I was also kind of passing out because for the last 24 hours I had hardly slept. So I was like passing out. But just before the when they started the sucking out process, I woke up. Like the nurses woke me up because they're thinking, what kind of dad is this who is sleeping on his wife while wife is in labor. Finally the baby came out. I cut the cord, and the whole ordeal was over. And the way the baby took care of it, during the process, my baby also got swollen head, and there was some, cut on the scalp because his scalp was like cut a little bit, like around 2.5 centimeters cut. So it got bruised because they were sucking him out from vacuum. So it was a, but overall I would say it was a very nice process. I felt that the nurses took care of the baby as well as the women very well. They were very courteous, and immediately you press the button, they were coming in. So once the baby was delivered, then we were shifted onto another room. Even before baby had to be delivered, we were in a different room. So when the baby was delivered, it was a different room. Once baby was delivered, we were shifted into another room. And in this third room, which is where we were, again nurses would come take care of the baby. They'll wash his hair. They're taking care of my wife as well throughout. So next day we were there, throughout the process. Interestingly, like, we are vegetarians, so we did have vegetarian options. And we could give our order to the cook. They would take our order for the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they'll bring us. So though it was not perfect, but to get a vegetarian food in the US itself is like a very big deal. So we were able to order like plain yogurt and some plain breads, and potato, and like some kind of assorted vegetables and things like that. And later on we were able to also order like some kind of pasta, and we were able to order like some kind of those kind of things. So like some soups, like maybe tomato soups, etc. So all those things were like really good. We never imagined that we'll be able to get those many kind of like vegetarian options. So food was also good. Most of all, like the healthcare that was provided both prior to the baby happening and post the delivery, the care that they took was like, especially when the prior to the delivery, the care was exceptionally well. After the baby was delivered, uh, my wife felt the nurses were a little bit less kind of kind and all, but overall it was still good. But prior to like having the baby, it was exceptional, and after having the baby, it was still above average, I would say. Overall experience is like really good. We didn't expect this out of the US hospital. And again, it was all covered through the insurance, and there was no extra charge, etc. And we had like baby had like jaundice during the operation, and wife was also very like weak, and had like a lot of fever and shivering and things like that. So overall, what they did was they gave us immediate appointment for the next day. So we were able to take the baby with us, and they said come back next day, so that they want to check like how baby is feeding, how his jaundice is doing, etc. So we brought back the baby the next day. They took some blood samples of the baby as well, just to see what kind of jaundice is there, is it growing high, etc. or not. And then they called us again the next day to bring the baby back, to check on him again, like how he's doing, how he's feeding, like etc. So the second day when we went, basically the third day when we went again with the baby, doctor confirmed that now, even though the jaundice is higher, but it is on its way down. Baby has gained weight over a period of time, which is fine. So he had lost weight like from his birth weight to now, but they said it is fine as long as they eat, they poop and pee, etc. It would be good. So again, the pediatrician here was like really good. She took good care of us, and that's our experience here in the US. So I think what to summarize this is like a difference between a birth in the US and birth in India. So we had our first child in India, gone through the process. Second child in US, gone through the process, and I would say. The kind of service and the care that we got here in the US was even more than what we saw in India. Though India was also not bad, but this one was exceptional. We were not expecting this in the US. Of course, food and all options are much better for Indians and vegetarians in India. That cannot be compared. But having seen what options were available here in the US, I would say like excellent marks for them as well. The kind of effort that they put and the kind of variety that we had, the cleanliness and all can't be compared. Exceptionally good, very good. Um, all the processes good. The thing that is not so good here is again the same thing that we said. The outpatient treatment is extremely bad here in the US. So after that, also conception, we had a lot of issues like to discuss about the baby or the mother, like having like chills or any kind of infections, etc. So it was very hard to get hold of the doctor. So we will get hold of a nurse over the nurse line, and she will tell one thing, and then somebody else will tell the other thing. So in back and forth in the OPD, like outpatient, like if you call them and all, that's not the best, I would say. I think hands down India in that scenario is very good, because you can just catch hold of the doctor right away. You don't have to take appointments and whatnot. In US somehow it's just extremely difficult to get that. Like you don't get the appointment so easily. They would like to just have you talk with the nurse and just prescribe you there, and work with it, unless it is like real emergency, etc. So yeah, all in all, both healthy deliveries, both healthy babies. One C-section in India, other natural conception with vacuum extraction in the US. Both experiences are good, and I would say like people who are experiencing, childless marriage and are looking for children, it's okay to take medical help, whether it is IUI or IVF is what you consider. Uh, our experience is different, because luckily for us, even at an advanced age of late 30s, early 40s, we were able to kind of deal with both these pregnancies, and thankfully they're like healthy. And time will tell whether we turn out to be good parents or not. Hopefully we do, because we are sharing knowledge with a lot of people. I already had one kid who is extremely active, and now we have the second kid as well, more recently. We are still kind of sleep deprived, and when I talked in my previous podcast that we were going through some things in our family, it was the birth of our second child. So he has just completed about a week now. So yeah, that's where we are here in the US. But we're very happy that like we were able to successfully go through this process, and Everything kind of worked out well. I think my kid is also out of jaundice now, and gaining weight as well. And mostly, I think some of the problems that my wife was experiencing are also behind her back, and she's on the way to her recovery. Still, she has like fever and chills and whatnot, so we're still treating that. But hopefully, in the next week or so, we should be out of any kind of issues as such. So that was all from my side today. I hope you are enjoying your time. You enjoyed this talk about like having children in US and in India, the real experience of how we dealt with the pregnancies, both cesarean and a natural delivery, and also contrasting the experience we had in India and in the US. I hope you like this content. If you do share it with others in your network. Do comment and share your experiences if you have had any about your child or about miscarriages or any kind of medical treatments that you might have had. I'd love to hear about them. Till then, take care. Have a nice weekend. It's like a Friday evening here. It's extremely hot today here. I expect to take my kids at to park today because we were waiting to like have sunset a little bit because it was just too extremely hot. But do write to us. Let us know if there is any other topic that is of interest to you that we can cover. If you have any questions, I know a couple of people are online. If you wanted to write right now, I'm happy to respond to them right away. If not, you can write it out later, and I can respond back once this video gets published. Take care of your family. I wanted to share a lot of personal developments, and this is something I've become father of now two kids now. As I said, the second child just came about a week ago. So I wanted to share this experience about India versus US, cesarean versus natural birth. And I would like to break certain like myths that yes, you can have successful child even in advanced age of like late 30s, early 40s, though it is not advisable. That's not I advise, but if you want it and if you work towards it, you can do it. uh, we got both of the pregnancies through natural process, but there is no harm in taking help from IUI or IVF or whatever process you want to go through it. But again, this is still a mystery. Like nobody knows why you get a miscarriage or why the pregnancy converts into like a healthy person. It's still a very big mystery of life, and you just have to go through it to like understand it. And even now that we have gone through it, we still don't understand it fully, and neither do any doctors do. So have faith, continue to progress further. We have known like celebrities and other people have even got like pregnancies in late 40s and even 50s as well. But if you remain healthy, focus on right eating, sleeping right, taking the right medications, I think these things can be done. If this is a motivation for any of you out there who are trying to have a baby or struggling with childless marriage, etc., then take this as a like an inspiration that possibly good news will come to your homes as well shortly. For now, I am signing off. Please do consider subscribing to this channel, liking it and sharing it with the networks, and do comment and let us know about your other topics or also your stories of pregnancies and miscarriages and things along those lines. Till then, take care, have a nice day, talk to you soon, and we'll have a good day. Bye.